Hello, I'm Professor Lieu. Welcome to our video. Today we are going to talk about how to find artistic inspiration during this global pandemic. I'll have some tips for you as far as how to get started brainstorming different ideas. If you would like to grow as an artist, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof to keep you occupied, critiques, and tutorials. I'm very excited to talk about this topic because I think more than anything, people are always asking me questions about where am I going to get my ideas? How do I find them? How do I know what they look like? And you really don't know. It's so different for every single artist that it's a very hard question to answer. However, over the years, I have figured out a couple things that I routinely implement into my own routine to try to find those ideas in a more proactive way. Because the thing I do know about coming up with ideas for your artwork is that you can't just wait around. This whole inspiration thing, guys, it's not real. This idea that someday lightning is going to strike and this incredible idea is just going to show up in your head. That's not happening. You have to be a lot more proactive than that. And I know for some people, right now is not a great time to be making artwork, and that's okay too. I have a lot of students right now. I'm teaching them remotely at RISD. A lot of them are struggling, and a lot of them are saying to me, look, I feel really bad that I don't feel very motivated to make artwork right now. And I'm like, that's okay. This is a really exceptional situation. So I don't think any of you here, if you're struggling and not having an easy time making artwork, it's okay. It really is. I've taken very long breaks from my artwork before. It was fine. I got back into it. So you will get back when the time is right. Okay. Hey guys, thank you everybody for joining in. Looks like we've got some new names, Ellie and Theo. We also got some regulars. Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us in the chat, while I go through some of the tips, if you have been making artwork during this pandemic and whether the artwork is specific to the global situation or if it's just you're making artwork but it doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic. So just tell me, because I'm curious to know what people are going to be doing. All right. Tip number one, this goes for anything that you're doing. Identify the cliche and then eliminate it. This is such an important step, and I find that a lot of people don't bother with it because it doesn't occur to them to figure out what the cliche is. Now, if you don't know what a cliche is the most obvious generic response for a certain theme. For example, if somebody says to you, I want you to make a drawing about spring, and you say, oh, I'm going to draw flowers. That is the cliche. The cliche of spring is flowers and buds. That's the typical thing that you tend to see. And so I would say, as an artist, in whatever subject you're trying to explore, you really want to put yourself in a situation where you're not going to do just what every single person is going to do as their first automatic response. So whatever that cliche is, figure out what it is. Okay, for example, if we use the coronavirus just as a subject, talking about artistic inspiration, one of the cliches would be this image of a face mask, because we see it everywhere. And so you can ask yourself, okay, what are the most typical images that are associated with the global pandemic right now? I know for some people, it's actually this image that they had these scientific illustrators put together. It was published in the New York Times the other day. There's a wonderful article. You guys should take a look at it. I put the link to that video, to that article in the video description below, so you guys can check that out. But as you can imagine, because this is now the official illustration for the virus, now people are using this image as a reference for a lot of different types of things. Let's see, it looks like we got a bunch of people here who are making art, which is great. Nathan's saying nothing much has changed. Hamza's saying doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic. And Christina's making watercolor cards doesn't require brain work. Yeah, that's actually helpful for a lot of us right now. We could use making things that use less brain power nowadays. All right, couple other things. If we think about the situation with the pandemic, there's a lot of images of the world because this is an international scale. There's images of respiratory functions like lungs, temperature, thermometers. There's also the thing about traveling and people spreading. And so these are very typical images that a lot of people associate with the global pandemic. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can certainly use an image like that and make a very compelling piece of artwork. I'm not saying that you can't use any of these images. It's just you either have to eliminate it or you have to understand that, you know what, everybody else is going to try to do that. So what can you do with that new subject matter that is going to be a really unique take that maybe not everybody else is going to draw the face masks the exact same way? Let's take a look. We got some great comments. Sam Miller saying cliche thing is a good point. I was going to do a painting of the Italians on balconies. Thinking about it, that's probably a cliche. Might still do it though, just for funsies. Yeah, it's like there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, you guys should pick whatever artwork you want to make. I'm just saying a lot of people ask me a lot of the times, well, how do I make something that's really going to get me to stand out? That's really going to get people to notice. And if you think about a lot of the images that are circulating around right now on social media, we've seen tons of photos of Italians out on balconies because that is a news story that has been going around quite a bit. Puck Puck is saying the UN is sponsoring an artistic interpretation for the pandemic. Oh, that's interesting. Is there a link for that, Puck Puck? I'd be very interested because I'd really like to take a look at that if that's something that they are pushing right now. Let's see. Let's go on to a couple more images. So another thing I also do, in addition to identifying the cliche, I really take time to see what other artists are doing. And right now, it's still fairly early, so there's not a huge amount of artwork that's been made yet, but more is being made every day. This is one of my favorite ones, Roz Shast, who is a cartoonist for The New Yorker. She's one of my favorite artists ever because she makes incredible pieces about oftentimes subject matter that's not easy to talk about, but she makes it hysterical. And the thing is, I'm such a cynical person. Like, I never laugh at anything. Like, half the time people show me stuff and they're like, this is so funny. You're going to laugh. And I'm like, nah, this is not funny. I laughed so hard when I saw this. I don't know. There's something about that first panel that is like, shh, I'm sleeping. Like, I just love this so much. And then the expression in the final panel is just priceless. Recycle Wednesdays, saying not an artist, been struggling with my coursework, watching Art Prof as a diversion. Reading about grief has also been validating for me, just in case that helps anyone. Yeah, there's an article going around right now. I can't remember where it was published, but they are talking about how a lot of the emotions that people are feeling right now are very strongly associated with grief and loss, which makes sense given the seriousness of the situation. Salty Person is saying our country is encouraging children to make cards and posters for the frontliners and patients. That's great. And Polka Dot is saying it's hard for me to even make art. I'm just pushing out absolutely basic drawings and studies because I have no inspiration to make original thoughts. It's hard. I mean, I'll tell you guys, there are definitely days when I just don't want to do it at all. And you're talking to somebody who absolutely passionately loves this. I have never questioned for a second whether I wanted to be an artist, but there are definitely days where it's hard to do. So you are not alone, and it has nothing to do with your commitment or passion as an artist. It's just some days are rough. Hamza saying Alex Mary made a great portrait of a virus illustration. It's really cool. I will have to Google that later on. Okay, tip number 2. I know this is a little bit yucky looking. I use this cute emoji. Barf on paper. What I mean by that is anytime you're trying to come up with an idea, you're trying to brainstorm a concept, put it on paper. Get sheets of paper and handwrite it down. I know a lot of people are very into typing things, and myself included. I mean, I type everything now. But when I'm brainstorming, it's not really the same thing. For some reason, it doesn't feel as real or as fluid to me when I type it as when I just handwrite just a really sloppy sheet of paper. Like, for example, I just have one here on my bulletin board, and it's like, this is what I do stuff on. It's just these really crummy scrap pieces of paper that don't look pretty at all, but they really help me get my hands onto the paper so I can make the ideas more concrete. It's important because I think what I see a lot of people doing, and I see students doing this in my class all the time, is that they will say, oh, well, I'm really thinking about something. And I'm like, well, why don't you get out your pencil and start writing something down? And they're like, oh, no, I'm doing it right now. I'm like, no, you're not. You don't get to just sift through ideas in your head. You got to put it on paper. Like, get a sheet of paper, get a pencil, write it down. And you're going to fill up lots of sheets of crummy paper that say nothing on them. But you can't judge an idea until it's actually on a sheet of paper. Because I think a lot of the times I have ideas in my head and I think, oh, this is so good, it's going to be amazing. Then I do a sketch and I realize, oh man, this looks like crap. I don't like this. Or other times I think, yeah, that's kind of dumb, but I'll put it on paper anyway. Let's just see. And then eventually ends up being something sort of cool looking. So don't judge and don't eliminate an idea until it's actually down on a sheet of paper. Marianne is saying, I'm afraid of being insensitive by tackling this in my work. People are dying. I don't want to seem like I'm taking advantage of a horrible situation. I think, Mariana, as long as you're aware of that and you are considering people's feelings and stuff like that, you're probably going to be okay. I mean, it does help, I think, before you post something publicly, maybe show it to a couple of friends or your family just to make sure it doesn't make anybody really upset. That's a good way to just do a little trial run on what's going on with the work. But again, some people don't want to make work about this. That's okay. I mean, I'm not somebody who really makes artwork about current events very often. It's rare for me to do that. But I know for some people, sometimes this is their way of coping. And so I want to put it out there as an option, but it's not for everybody. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I mean, I have an example at the end of the stream that I'm going to show you guys that actually does not end up having anything to do with the virus situation, but it is an example of many ideas and influences all coming together. Let's see. Hamza saying, I read a piece on, quote, writing compost, putting all your good thoughts in a pile and letting them marinate in Escher. Oh, that's really cool. I love that idea of compost and marination. That just seems really, really cool. Okay, now one tutorial we have that, well, it's not really a tutorial, it's more a playlist. We've got this playlist of all these artist sketchbooks, and if you have not watched these videos, they're really fun because number one, they're super short, and also you just get to see so many different versions of sketchbooks, and I find it very, very satisfying to see how other people put things together. But honestly, this is what mine look like. I mean, they're like not impressive. There's a lot of people in the sketchbook video playlist who have like beautiful sketchbooks that I am like supremely jealous of. But I'm just never going to be one of those like beautiful sketchbook people. This is basically what I do all day. It's just piles of papers that are sitting on my floor. Ripple of Aqua saying, what advice do you give people who get stuck and self-conscious about the sketch stage? Like, you can barf all day, but only one picture in 100 gets past my sketchbook. You know what, Ripple of Aqua? That is totally natural. I would be shocked if you had so many options that were amazing and you couldn't pick. I mean, most of the time, a lot of us are putting out 50 ideas and we're lucky if we get one that's even half decent. So the self-conscious part of it, I think you just have to realize that if you eliminate something because you're self-conscious, you're in essence choking the potential of your work. And the thing is, you don't have to show any of this publicly. Like, you don't have to show people, oh, this is what I'm thinking about doing. You can keep all of that private until you're really ready to show it, because I just feel like we live in this age where people feel that everything they make has to be posted online. It does not. You should keep your stuff private if it makes things a little bit easier for you in terms of the creativity. All right, now This tutorial does go through a couple of basic brainstorming techniques. It's a printmaking tutorial, but the beginning part of it, I talk about making a mind map, about doing thumbnail sketches, about how to brainstorm. So even if you don't want to do printmaking, this is still a really good tutorial just for the first 10 minutes or so to figure out what is going on. All right. So tip number 3 is one that I'm sure you guys have heard this statement before, but maybe not in this context, which is think globally and act locally. If you haven't heard this before, this is a phrase that a lot of people talk about in terms of activism, in terms of social issues, in terms of making big political change in the world, is that the idea is you can have a greater impact if you think globally, you think on a bigger scale, but your actions actually happen on a local level. Because I know that there's this problem now, actually, they're having with a lot of college students, that these college students want to have something on their resume that says, oh, I went to a third world country and I helped people build a house. But they said actually a lot of those trips are very harmful because the people don't stay there long enough to actually have much of an impact. And they said that actually, if a high school student really wants to have an impact on social issues, they're better off doing something that's in their town, because there's plenty you can do locally at a community center, at a soup kitchen or something like that. And so I really like this mindset that they're recommending. So basically what I'm saying is it's good, I think, to keep an eye on the bigger picture. So this is an illustration by Prof Lieu that was in the New York Times. And again, it's another image of hand sanitizer, which we've seen over and over again. And also images like this, which is by an illustrator, Angelina Bambina. This was in an I think this was in the New York Times, I can't remember, but it was an editorial illustration about the global pandemic. And I also love, this is a beautiful series of photographs that was published in the New York Times. You can find the link to this article in the video description below. And basically they sent photographers around the entire earth, asking them to shoot photos to capture the emptiness of very large public spaces that typically are extremely crowded. Like here's an image, I think this is Berlin. I can't remember. It might be Belgium. I'm sorry. I really should know. But it's basically a subway station that's empty, which if you live in a big city is completely unheard of. And so this is on a global scale. You know, these are images that are from Tokyo, that are the side of the planet and stuff like that. So here's the thing. Here's my local version of this. Okay. If I want to take this theme of an empty space and the people who are supposed to be there not being there anymore, I actually took this photo. I walked around the corner today and shot it because this is actually a crosswalk that normally, if I'm walking one of my kids to school, we cross this crosswalk every single day that we have school. And there's a crossing guard who's always there to cross us. And we say good morning to her and on the way back and everything. She's part of our routine. And I thought to myself, wow, I haven't seen her for a long time. I'm so used to seeing that crossing guard standing there waiting for us every morning. And that's an interaction that I don't have anymore. So I think it's important to be thinking about these bigger global issues. But I think when you can bring it down to earth a little bit more and have it be more personal and more about something that you're experiencing, in my opinion, it's easier because you don't have to make anything up. It's real, it's something you're actually experiencing. And number 2, I think it's just very genuine. I think you understand it a little bit better. Now, I'm not trying to tell people that you shouldn't try to tackle those bigger images, because these photos that were taken by the photographers of the New York Times are stunning. And they're really, I think, haunting. And they really do capture the emotion that I think a lot of people are feeling right now. But I think for somebody like me, like I'm not going to get on a plane and go to Tokyo and take that photo, but I am going to walk down the street and think about my daily routine and how that has been disruptive. So that's a way, I think, to connect this global pandemic to something that really is a lot more personal. All right. Now, the other thing I try to do as well, and I know this isn't a possibility for everybody, but we do have the Art Prof family here, so you can check all of us out, is look at what your friends are making online. If you have artist friends or you have artists who you admire and you really enjoy their work, see what they're doing. Because this is Song Kang, who was actually a former student of mine at RISD many, many years ago. And if you guys don't follow her on Instagram, you should, because I'm obsessed with Song's Instagram. Her Instagram is amazing. Like, first of all, the photographs are beautiful. But then on top of that, the artwork is just like breathtaking. Like Song is my example of me becoming the teacher stereotype of the student, totally surpassing you in so many artistic ways. And so when Song posted this the other day, I was so taken aback by it because it's so simple and it's very beautiful and elegant. But the thing is, it's also terrifying at the same time. And I just love that so much. Ashley is asking, is that a print? No, it's not. Can you believe it? If you look at this photo, that's a Micron pen. That's it. And if you guys want to get good techniques on pen, Song does amazing work that's in mixed media. A lot of people just think her work is only pen on paper, but it's not. She puts in like matte medium, she puts in markers, she does all sorts of incredible things. And actually, we do have tutorials that I shot with Song in fall that are going to be coming up pretty soon. In fact, I was working on this one earlier this afternoon on Scratchboard. So I'm hoping that this will get into our YouTube channel fairly soon. It's going to take forever though, because oh my God, there's hours of footage of her just doing this for a long, long time on the Scratchboard. But look at her Instagram. She's really extraordinary. All right. Tip number 4 is to get specific. This is something I am always telling students over and over again until I'm like blue in the face. And guess what? I'm going to keep doing it because it really helps. I think what I see a lot with people is that they have an idea, but they never whittle it down to something more specific. So, for example, one of the things that I have started doing, one of my new routines now, instead of walking my daughter to school, I always go for a walk with my husband and my 2 kids at some point every day. I mean, at first we're like, yeah, we're going to go twice a day. And now we're like, we need to get work done. So we're not going out as much as we like, but we like to get some fresh air. We live in a suburban area, so it's not super crowded, pretty safe for us to do that. And so one thing that I've been doing is that even though I go for a walk every single day, and we don't go that far. I mean, it's not like we're walking 20 miles. There's only so many places you can do. So you do end up seeing the same thing over and over again. But one thing that I've been doing on the walks is I will notice things that I would ordinarily have not taken the time to look at. So for example, today, because I knew I was doing the stream, I shot photos of all the moments that I saw on my walk that I thought to myself, I wish I could draw that. I do that a lot where I just notice something. It's like a little leaf that's on the sidewalk. And I think, I wish I could draw that. Now, I don't have the time to go back and draw that right now because I have all these other things to do. But I really like having that picture in my head, remembering that. And even sometimes the next day, the leaf is still there, or maybe it's in a different position. And so things like that make a big difference. So instead of saying a leaf, you say that leaf, that maple leaf, which is wet and soggy on the corner of my sidewalk. That makes a really big difference. Rebecca Sang didn't realize 23 minutes passed by this quick. I'd love a full lecture with you. Well, you guys should tune in tomorrow night because I am very excited to do part 2 of my Anatomy for Artists lecture starring Christian Bale. Oh, I forgot how cute he was. Oh my God. Like, I've been on such a Michael Fassbender kick. I just haven't thought about Christian Bale for a while. And I was like, man, I really need to like rewatch the whole Batman series because, oh, he looks really good in that movie. Anyway, another thing also that I look for, especially now because it's spring, is I look at little shoots. Like every time there's like new crocuses, or every time there's this like huge hosta bush, which is outside my door. And I always feel like they look like little asparagus sprouts that are coming out. I just noticed today that some of them were starting to come out. And so I actually started doing that as well. And by the way, if you guys are out for walks, shoot photos. I don't usually do it because I try to leave the house without my phone because I'm like, you know what, I spend enough time on my phone anyway. I don't need it on a walk. But in this wash painting tutorial, Alex Rowe and we actually travel to a cemetery to shoot photos for reference for his illustration. And so I know a lot of people are asking me, oh, well, how do I get good references? Where do I go online to find a good photo? I'm like, take your own photos. It's so much better, you guys. Yes, I know it's like not the same thing as the picture of the flamingo that maybe you need. Okay, yeah, sometimes you need to do that. I get it. But if there's a graveyard near you and you need pictures of gravestones, go there. Don't just Google gravestones. I mean, there's a graveyard that's like a 5-minute walk from where I live. I totally would go there instead. Nanika saying anatomy with Christian Bale. Yeah, you know why? Because I had said in my first anatomy stream that I really wanted to make sure I included all different types of figures. Like, I don't want to always have these stupid anatomy references where all the women are size 2. I think that's really annoying, okay? And all the men are super pumped up because not everybody's like that. So I picked Christian Bale because he was in that movie, The Machinist, where he lost like 60 pounds. It's actually really scary to look at the photos of him. But he also played former Vice President Dick Cheney in that movie Vice, and I think he gained like 100 pounds. And so actually with that one actor, I was able to get like 5 different body types. It was actually like really, really perfect. All right. Eileen is saying, stumbled upon one of your videos, brought back so many fond memories from art class in high school. Oh, good. I'm really glad to hear that. Okay, number 5 is to let your worlds collide, okay? Just because you guys are working on an art project, it doesn't mean it has to come from that brainstorming session. It can come from something completely unrelated, and let those places collide. Because you know something? I posted this drawing on my Instagram, I think a few days ago, and I'm going to show it to you guys in a few minutes. And when I looked back on the process, I realized, wow, that inspiration for that piece came from all these totally random, unrelated places. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that actually sometimes your best place to find ideas is, number 1, when you're not trying to find them, and number 2, in places that have nothing to do with artwork at all. So keep an eye out for that stuff. You're not always going to find ideas in an art book. You're not always going to find it on an art website. Sometimes you find it somewhere else totally different. Sterling is saying, about to finish my first acrylic still life. Watched Alex's video before starting. Really helpful. Before I start my second one, what should I look at and ask myself about my finished piece? Well, I think I would probably ask yourself about the lighting situation. If you put a light on the still life, hopefully you did. If you didn't, don't worry about it. You can always do it next time. But I find with still life, Sterling, lighting is really, really important because without the lighting, without the highlights and the shadow, it's really hard to organize. And then another thing you can do too is you can ask yourself about the background and the interaction of the objects with the background. Because oftentimes people don't work on the background and the objects start to look like they're floating a little bit. So I would keep that in mind. All right, so here's how I got the idea for that beat drawing. Let me see if I can find it. I think, okay, so this is the beat drawing that I eventually posted on my Instagram. You guys can check it out later. So this is the finished piece. And this is not really like a piece. To me, this is more like a study. This is more me just playing around a little bit. So I'm not trying to say that this is like, whoa, a big moment. It is so not. And this project, oh my God, I'm like 0.0001% there. I've done so little work on it. It's so premature right now, but I'm getting excited about it, and that's important. So this is a drawing. And actually, the way I got started doing this was because a lot of the teachers have been transitioning to a remote classroom. I actually put together this new section on artprof.org, teaching and learning art online. And it's specifically for teachers and students, giving them ways they can configure remote learning without having to resort to fancy art supplies or things that require lots of hands-on guidance from people. So I was putting this together, again, not that related to what I was doing. And then I was thinking, oh, this would be really cool because people seem to want information about home art supplies because people either don't have an art store nearby or the art store is closed, or you can't afford it or something like that. So I put together all of these photos of home art supplies. So like balsamic vinegar, actually Kool-Aid makes awesome paint. Like if you guys run out of paint, just go to the grocery store and buy a packet of Kool-Aid. It's like really, really pretty paint. So check that out. And so one of the things that somebody suggested to me was, oh, you should paint with beet juice. And I'd seen all these things where people would like boil beets and they would make the liquid and everything. So I was cutting up the beets and I noticed that the beets, they're like a little bit juicy. They're not wet, but I was like, maybe I could just draw with this, like not even use water or brush at all. And so I cut it up. I was like, whoa, this is like beet charcoal. It was really cool. And it was very unpredictable. The marks were strange. And I loved the color because it was red, but it wasn't like pink red, but it was also a little bit bruisey looking, which I thought sounded really cool. Well, for my subject matter, I'm not saying bruising is a good thing. Ashley Brock is saying, are there any bulbs that give the illusion of natural light? Ashley, one thing you could consider is if you get a fluorescent light, actually, like not a huge fluorescent light that you get at like a school, but like if you get a fluorescent light that has a nice cool feeling to it, that's a little bit better than the ones that are like really yellow and don't look good at all. Salty Person is saying, won't Kool-Aid bring ants? I would think, Salty Person, if you let it dissolve in the water all the way and then paint on it, I think it would be okay. I don't know. I mean, long term, I have not done anything, but we'll see. I mean, it's sitting in my studio. We'll see if ants come along. They have not so far, so that's a pretty good thing. Okay, so it's doing these beet things, and oh, we got one more thing about supplies from Ripple of Aqua. There any way to seal the homemade paint and drawing materials? I can only imagine the smell or discoloration after some time. I think Ripple of Aqua, it would probably depend on the surface that you're actually putting it on. I mean, for example, if you put beet juice on canvas or something, you probably could seal it with like an acrylic varnish on top. I know some people, you could even put shellac on it. There's probably a lot of options you could consider. I'm not super worried about the beets because it's not like I poured beet juice on top of it. Like it's actually very thin. Like you can't actually see it that much. So anyway, it has not smelled that bad so far, although I will report in about a month what that actually looks like. Okay, so the second unrelated thing is I actually, for the past little week until this pandemic disrupted us, have been working with Kathleen Speranza, who is one of my colleagues. She taught painting at RISD for a very, very long time. And I've been working with her in her studio, and she's somebody I have always wanted to learn from because, oh, her paintings are so good. And there are very few people I would say this about, but I'm like intensely jealous of her painting skill. And so I've always said to her, I'm like, I really want to get into your head and see how you think. And I want to know how you do these paintings because they're extraordinary pieces. And the thing is, like, I love paintings, but I don't know, there aren't a lot of paintings that make me feel this emotional. Like when I look at Kathy's oil paintings, they're roses, but they're not just roses. Like to me, these are emotional portraits and they really like tug at my soul in a way that a lot of paintings do not normally. And so I've been working with her so much in her studio and we've been talking about her process and everything. And of course, I'm shooting the tutorial for Art Prof. And eventually at some point, we're going to have a wonderful tutorial with her so you guys can see her painting and drawing process. But that's going to be a while because her tutorial is going to take a long time to produce. But she's been in my head because I've been thinking about this so much. And so I had this bunch of sketches for this project. I started this a ways back. It's about my gums. Long story short, I have terrible gums. Like I have like gums from hell, basically. And so this is an image where the black marks actually are tracing the jaggedness of the stroke when I get a cleaning, because a cleaning to me is like hell, like at like deep, dark depths of hell. Like I get so anxious the day before, even like a week leading up to one of my cleanings is just so horrible for me. I'm not going to linger on this for too long, but basically that's what this is based on. And so I thought to myself, you know what? The color of that beet sketch, that actually looks a lot like the purpley, bruisey red that I expect to see in my mouth. And so I started doing this pencil sketch. Here's the first stage. And so here at the bottom, you can see that's me holding like a little piece of beet stick. And so I'm just doing the beet marks on top of the pencil. And then in this next image, this is only beet with the pencil. And I guess I used a little bit of water here and there, but not very much. It's mostly just straight beet stick, like rubbed against the surface of the paper. And I loved it because it was such a weird tool and I'd never used it before. And so it got me to be more experimental about it and to try out a lot of different surfaces. I had a lot of fun drawing with that. And then I started adding actually these really soft pieces of graphite stick, which I used to accentuate some of the images. And then if you guys look carefully, you'll see that actually I started using a little bit of a red brush pen. So you can see the tint of the beet stick. It's a little bit more purpley. The other one is a little bit more of a cadmium color. And so these are the tools. It was like a knife, a beet, a water brush, a Tombow brush pen. And so that's pretty much what I use. And then eventually I started thinking about what Kathy and I had been talking about constructing space. Because the thing about her paintings, I mean, there's a million things about her paintings that I think are really extraordinary. But what I love about her paintings is the way she constructs space around the rows and how she really is like carving space as she does that. And so I started thinking to myself, okay, I want to do that. I want to start to build space the way she does. And she does it in such a unpredictable, non-linear manner. I'm such a planner that it was so cool for me to watch her do that. And so I tried actually working in a way that was more similar to the way she worked. And that was great. I felt like I was taking a vacation for myself, which was really, really fun. And then the other day, like, honestly, I just was thinking, my gums are hell. They are hell. Like, that's exactly how they feel. This is probably going to get me demonetized on YouTube. But anyway, then I started thinking about Michael Mazur, who did this incredible series of monotypes based on Dante's Inferno. And so if you guys have not seen Michael Mazur's prints, go look them up because, oh, they're so good. I saw one at the Riz Museum when I took my printmaking class there last fall, and I'm like still remembering that moment. I got to see that Michael Mazur print, and now I'm like going, oh my God, maybe I want to represent my gums as Dante's Inferno. I have no idea. That sounds kind of dumb when I say it out loud, but who knows? You can't write off anything. I'm not going to make any decisions too soon because I need that idea to marinate a little bit more. Who knows? Maybe in a few days I'll decide, you know what, I'm an idiot. That sounds really dumb, but we'll see. Christina is saying, what did you use for the white highlights? So that was actually a totally last minute decision. I was not planning on doing that. I really was trying to preserve the white of the page. But the thing about the beets is that the beets, you can't get a very sharp mark. And so I ended up losing all the highlights. And so my daughter had actually been painting with some watercolors. They were just sitting on the table and I was like, okay, I guess I'll use these. And actually, I don't like the way they look here, but I like the potential I'm starting to see. And I actually feel like maybe in the next one, I might actually try white gouache and maybe do some glazing of whites over so I can start to layer this some more. And maybe these will turn into oil paintings. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm excited and I have not done a lot of my studio art lately. So this is a really nice thing for me to sink my teeth into. And Rebecca's saying, I've done artwork using liquid lipstick. Whoa, I don't even know what liquid lipstick is, but I think I gotta go find out now. I feel like I need to add that to my list of art supplies or something. That sounds terrific. Anyway, guys, I hope you will explore artprof.org. We've got lots of cool things, all free, waiting for you there on our site. We hope you will join the Art Prof family by subscribing to our channel. And by the way, if you don't know this, we actually just opened an Art Prof Discord server yesterday. If you want to get that link, it's in our Instagram profile. It's also in our YouTube community tab. And if you can't find it, just send me a comment or an email and I'll send you the link. We'd love for you guys to hang out with us there act like big nerds, argue about phthalo blue, that type of thing. Anyway, guys, thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters. Thank you to everybody here who is here on the stream. Love your comments. This is like, oh my God, best artist community ever. I mean, I never dreamed that I could have a community like this. Like, I always had ideas about what I thought I wanted Art Prof to be, but it's like 10 times better than anything I could have imagined. So thank you guys so much. Everybody, stay safe. I will see you next time. Bye.